Welcome mates, I'm Bloodthirsty Lord, but you can call me Lordy, and we're back on Paragon once again. We're on the main screen right now, because today's video, we're going to discuss my Serath build that I've been using for the past couple of games, and it's been working out pretty well. Gives me high kills, gives me less deaths, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a melee carry, killing the enemy team, and doing as much damage as possible. In this build, you're able to do 600 damage plus once you crit, and it's pretty amazing because that's what you want, and she's pretty consistent. I love this hero, she's brand new, and she's so enjoyable. This is going to be my build and guide video on Serath. But before we get into this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button to keep up to date with the greatest and latest Paragon Gaming content and Paragon Gaming news. And if you haven't turned on notifications yet, you can do so by hitting that little bell button next to the subscribe button so you have the chance to become one of the first mates on the channel up to date with my amazing Paragon Gaming content. As always, expected here first, so without further ado, let's get straight into it. So we're going to go to our profile, check our decks, and we made a new deck for Serath, and that name for the deck is Serath is BAE. What an amazing name for a deck, don't you think, mates? But let's get into this. Obviously, we have Warlord as our prime card because of the 60 power, and obviously the 100% damage bonus that you do get when you do activate the prime orb for your whole team. Then with our consumables, we do have a health potion, followed by a health token, mana pot, scale ward, strike token, and a blink charm. 2 strike tokens indeed, because sometimes depending where you want to play in, say if I was playing in the safe lane, I'll take 2 strike tokens and a health pot. If I was playing in the mid lane, I'll take a scale ward, mana pot and a health pot maybe, or scale ward, a strike token, then a health potion. One of those type of things. There's always a different start you can take with this build depending on the role that you're in. Sadly, I don't have a jungle build for Serath yet. I'm still working on that and hoping to make it great. I pretty much have that jungle build on paper in my notepad, and something I'm going to develop very soon, and hopefully it works out pretty well. But we haven't tried that yet, so I don't want to really jump into the jungle one, so we're pretty much going to explain this one only. This really works well in the mid lane and the safe lane. Those are the 2 places I've tried it at, and it's pretty interesting in those 2 lanes. Let's go into the equipment that you want to take. Adamant Edge. Obviously because it gives you health and a power increase in the early game, because we put upgrades on it, that early upgrades. So we got 2 minor strikes and 1 lesser health upgrade to pretty much help us to sustain, while also doing some crazy amounts of damage. Once you fully upgrade this item, you will get more power out of the item. Insane. Then we move on to the Bright Steel Plate card, which does fall under the Affinity of Order. And it's pretty interesting because it does give you basic armor. It gives you basic armor of 7 plus 8 crit chance. We did put some upgrades into it, which will give us crit and more actual basic armor. And once you fully upgrade it, you'll be able to get more basic armor. Followed up by the next item, or the next card within our deck, is going to be Golden Veil, which has Wound, Divine Barrier, and Barrier. It's pretty much the exact same thing as Bright Steel Plate, but the energy armor or the ability armor version of it. So it works really well, and it helps me pretty much survive longer in fights, because once I'm in a fight, I'm taking damage from the armor that I do have from basic and ability. I'm able to soak a bit of damage before I have to leave that fight, or use my immunity ability, or try to escape or engage a next target. So it just helps overall just with sustain. Obviously, maybe building health in this character is pretty interesting as well. Something I haven't really done because I'm playing that character as purely as a melee carry to do as much damage as possible. Then we move on to the Rift Scepter. We have 2 of these. One is an early game item because I like to rush this as well. It gives you 6 power plus 4 crit chance. Once fully upgraded, you do get 12 power. We have 1 minor wound plus 2 minor strikes in this actual card. That's my early game item. I have some early game items, mid game items, and late game items. I'm going to explain them at the very end. Pretty much want to keep going through the cards. We just said not long ago that we had 2 Rift Scepters, and within this one, we do have a Die Wound upgrade followed up by Major Strikes. Obviously to be pumping out a lot of damage in the late game or mid game stages of a fight. Let's move on to the next cards, and we have 2 versions of them as well. Whirling Wand, and I have an early game version and somewhat a mid game version to late game. This does have 1 minor strike plus 2 minor kinetics. The item works pretty much with 6 power initially plus 5.5 attack speed. Once fully upgraded, you get increased attack speed, and attack speed is bloody amazing with this character because it works with her ultimate, Heresy, pretty well. Let's move on to the next card, and it does have 2 major strikes and 1 minor kinetic, obviously giving us a major spike towards the late game. And with all this crit chance, you need to have crit bonus, and Blade of Agora just does it so well. So with this actual item here, I do get 6 power initially, followed by the upgrades I do have on it, which is a cast, minor strike, strike on the actual card. And by successfully fully upgrading that, I will be able to get 100% crit bonus from this card, and that is bloody amazing. So it's kind of interesting how this deck works. It's pretty much me pumping out a huge amount of damage in a short duration. Me surviving is not the main aspect. It's there, but it's not fully there. Like, I have some items that can help me sustain and help me with counterplay, but they're nothing too serious. Like, I could build some other items that goes full tanky on this character, have increased health and all that, but it just doesn't work because she's a melee carry. she needs to be up close and personal to do damage, and sometimes building health and armor is going to take away a lot of your damage on your crit and your crit bonus. So obviously we didn't want to do that. There's no lifesteal in this build. I'm going to make another deck in the future, maybe with lifesteal, because I've tested it and I don't really think it's the best, but maybe I haven't tested it to the best of its capability, so we'll test that in the future once again. But in this build, it's all about damage burst, killing the targets as quick as possible. So this is an example of a start build depending on what lane I'm in. So if I'm in the safe lane, I'm going to get 2 strike tokens, followed by a health pot, because that's an amazing start. You're able to pump out huge amounts of damage in the early game, followed by some type of sustain from your health pot when versing the range offlaner most likely, or the enemy offlaner, because anytime a moment, the enemy offlaner will try and engage you and try and destroy you because you're a melee and you're not a range carry, so they will get close and personal to destroy you. If they range offlaners, they're just going to poke on you constantly to make you pretty much leave lane, and then the enemy offlaner will be able to dominate that lane, and that's something you don't want, so health pot helps you stay in that fight for much longer. Blink Charm is a very crucial item because it's a part of the end game build and it has to be there. You have to get it at some stage depending on how you're going. If you're really fed and you don't need to escape as much or need to engage as much, there's no point in getting Blink Charm straight away. But if it comes towards the mid game to late game, you must get it because this is a part of the end game build. So after I get those 3 items there, the 2 strike tokens and the health pot, I move on to my next item, which will be Adamant Edge. And this is going to help me with sustain and also doing some increased damage in lane, and that's amazing. So that's what you get straight after from your first back or 2. You'll be able to complete that quite easily with 6 unspent points when you back in the first time or the second time, it's your choice. Then we move on to the next item that I'll usually get is Rift Scepter, because the crit chance and the power increase I'm going to get, that's a pretty amazing increase of power. So every time I slam a minion, I'm able to get that farm quite easily, followed by me being aggressive towards the enemy team. I could pull off roams early game, but I really try to prevent myself because farming on this hero is a great thing. Then you move on to the next item, which will be Whirling Wand. These are all the early game items that go into somewhat of the mid game, around level 5 or 6, around now even sometimes higher. You'll be able to get these 3 items as quick as possible. And obviously if you're fed, you'll be able to get these items even quicker. And you need these cards to help you out. And by having these 3 cards plus the other 3 starter items, you have sustain, you have damage, insane amounts of damage, followed by attack speed and crit. That's amazing for melee carry, and it works out really well. And then after you complete those items, then you go into the mid-game items to the late game, and that'll be Blade of the Agora. You want to try to rush this as quick as possible because the crit bonus is amazing. But if you don't want to get that as quick as possible, you can change into the other items, which will be like the duplicate versions of each item. So Rift, you can get another copy of that, or Whirling Wand, you can get another copy of that, which have amazing amounts of damage or attack speed, or amazing amounts of crit and damage. It's your choice which one you go after that, and then you get Blade of the Agora. Your last 2 items will always be the Bright Steel Plate or the Golden Veil, because they're tanky items that you really don't need until the late game stages, depending how you're going. It all depends on the situation that you're in at that current moment. If you're losing, laying badly, and you need some type of sustain, you'll rush these items. But if you're not, you can obviously build other items to give you amazing amounts of damage to hopefully kill the enemy team and destroy them as quick as possible. So pretty much that's the example of my build. And Blink Charm can fall into the build at any time in mid-game to late game, especially because that's where it feels like it's going to be right. So pretty much with this build, you're doing insane amounts of damage, up close and personal. And if you want to escape and get to higher levels through verticality, you can do so by Blink Charm into your Ascend ability, or trying to escape from enemy people or trying to gap close, you just use Blink Charm Engage. If you can't reach them by the Blink Charm, you can obviously chain that on with your Ascend ability to get closer and close that gap and destroy them. It's all about being in melee range with this character, and having a Blink Charm does help out quite a bit. So you have crazy amounts of attack speed by the end of the game. You have some tank which is going to provide ability armor and obviously basic armor, so that's going to help you quite a bit with sustain, followed up by increased amounts of damage. It's just gorgeous how this build works. I've played it a couple times and it works out pretty well, but I want to know your thoughts about this. What do you think about this build? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you feel like I should change some parts of the deck to make it better? Because I'm going to make a second deck guaranteed, and I don't know what that's going to be called, but it's going to be interesting for sure. But in that build, we might have lifesteal in that, and we'll be able to have more interesting aspects that fall into lifesteal category instead of being the pure crit chance, which I always enjoy. But I feel like that's all we need to explain for this build. It's pretty amazing, I like it, but I want to know your thoughts, honestly. So leave your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section down below if it's good or bad, because it's always great to read that. Personally, I do enjoy this build. So make sure if you did enjoy this video, show us by smashing that below like button. Let's try to get 200 likes on this video, and if you make want to see more Paragon Gaming content and Paragon Gaming news on my channel, all you have to do is share with your friends and hit the subscribe button to become a mate today. That's all for this video. Oh, time to go, but don't you worry, be back very soon. Hang tight, boys, you ain't seen nothing yet. Mates, you're just gonna wreck them for days with this build. You know it's true. You saw my Kalari build, that was insane. With this build, it's even better, mates. And that it feels right.